Hello, my name is Jim. We're going to be talking about the Milwaukee M18 Fuel 2781 slide switch grinder today on
Kilimanjaro.
Milwaukee calls this a 4.5/5-inch grinder. I'm not sure why they didn't just call it a 5-inch grinder. I guess they wanted to make sure that you're aware that you can use 4.5-inch discs with it. The 5-inch discs do work a lot better in this grinder. It spins a little bit slower than most corded grinders. This one spins at 8,600 RPMs. Most corded ones will go up to about 10,000, 11,000 RPMs. So with the bigger disc, you get a faster cutting speed on the edge of it for the same amount of spin. So this one with a 5-inch disc is going to spin close to the amount that a corded one with a 4.5-inch disc will spin on it. The 4.5-inch discs do spin just fine on here. They work just fine. They just go a little bit slower than with a faster corded grinder. So in the box here, you get the grinder, obviously. You get a guard. You get another guard that kind of more envelops the blade here for when you're using cutting discs. You're supposed to use that type of guard. Of course, most people aren't going to use a guard at all. The handle is a nice handle. It has this kind of rubbery part in here that's an anti-vibration feature. It does cut down on the vibrations a little bit. I haven't noticed it to be a tremendous difference between just a fixed handle, though. So this handle does unscrew it from this side. You could put it on this side, whichever side you're more comfortable with. You can use it on that side. To change the blades on it, it's a kind of toolless design. There's a lock on the back here, and then if this nut isn't too tight, you can just unscrew it like that. If it is too tight, you need to use a spanner wrench, or if you've got a cutting disc in here, this nut here actually flips over. So if you've got a thick grinding disc, you're supposed to use it this way with this flange, the protrusion on the bottom kind of sticking down into the disc. But if you're using it with a cutoff disc, then you use it with that flipped up. When that's flipped up, there's some flats on it so you can get an adjustable wrench on it. If it's flipped over and you've got it in a grinding disc, then you need to use the spanner wrench. So that can be a little irritating if you lost that spanner wrench. It can be a little harder to find those. To change blades, you just take that off, pop that off. Then you can flip this over if you're putting a grinding disc on or whatever. If you want to reposition the guard, there's this nice button here, and then you can just rotate it around. And if you want to take it off, there's a bunch of teeth on here, and you have to align it with the teeth. And then if you've got it in just the right position, you can slide the guard off. It's a bit of a pain, but it is pretty easy. You don't need to use any tools or anything like that. So there's a little bit of a better chance that you're going to put the guard back on after you've done using it. Now at the bottom here, there's this little air filter that goes over the air intake. So this just pops on and off. The air gets drawn from the bottom of the tool up through the top and then comes out at these two vents up here. So it's pretty important that you don't want all that, conductive iron grinding dust to get into the motor, into the electronics that are in here. So it's pretty good that they have this filter over the bottom of it. They do give you a spare one of these. The problem is there's no place to put that or anything, so I've already lost mine. I imagine most people are going to lose theirs pretty quickly. So it is a metal mesh filter, so you can just blow it out when it gets dirty. It's probably a good idea to do that fairly regularly because you don't want this to overheat from not getting enough cooling air. One thing to keep in mind with the grinder, and it's true of all the bigger M18 tools, you really need the bigger batteries to go with them. This is a 1.5 amp hour battery. It usually comes with the kit. If you buy a cordless drill and an impact driver together, they'll frequently give you these little batteries to come with it. They're obviously the cheapest, but they're also the lightest weight and they work just fine in a drill. In a cordless grinder like this that uses a lot of power, the smaller batteries not only have less capacity, but they can put out less amperage. So I've got a piece of 3/16 inch, just regular hot rolled steel here. So let's try and cut it off with the smaller battery first, just so you can see how poorly that works. We'll put some safety glasses on. The battery is fully charged here. It's not the newest battery though, so it's probably a little down on capacity and power as well due to that, but let's try and make a cut with it. So you can see there, I was pressing pretty hard, but it does, torque out and can't draw enough power to make the cut with that smaller battery. So let's try it again with the bigger battery. So I've got the 5 amp hour battery installed in here now. I find that's a good size for this grinder. It keeps the tool relatively well balanced. These bigger ones, they weigh a lot more, take up a lot of space, they're pretty bulky, so it can be a little tail heavy at that point, and they're a little less comfortable to use. It also provides plenty of power and plenty of runtime for this. You can always have another battery running on the charger if you need even more capacity. If you're off on the field or something, you might want to bring a bigger battery with you, and they work just fine with these bigger batteries. Let's switch the blade over here to a grinding disc. So I'm going to use this DeWalt 4.5 inch grinding disc. So I've now gotten this blade jammed on here from trying to make that cut so that I can't get it off. I can't get enough torque on it with my hand. So fortunately, because this is the cutoff disc, it's got the square on it, I can just use a little adjustable on here and get it off that way. So that comes off. I'm going to put my grinding disc on. I'm going to flip the nut over and tighten it down. Alright, so now we're going to grind just a little 45 on here in case you wanted to make a weld or something. Alright, so now I'm going to switch it over to a flap disc just so you can see how that works. Just got another little DeWalt flap disc on here. And those work great just as well. So one thing you'll notice there is that this did take a long time to spin down. So this is not the model with the brake. They do have one with the brake. The brake is great because then you can put it down right away, particularly if you don't have the guard on where it's always going to be resting on the blade. The problem with the brake though is I've had it where it stops it so violently that then this nut comes spinning off, you know, if you don't tighten it up enough. So that could be a little downside on the brake, but I definitely would recommend the brake. It's very irritating having to wait for it to spin down all the time when you want to go to put it down. Last thing I want to show you here is a little wire cup disc on here. So these go on, obviously take the other blade off and the nuts off. You can also take the guard off. It's not going to do anything for that type of thing. So to do that, you just rotate it so these teeth align nicely, and then it comes right off. Surprisingly, in the little safety manual they give with the grinder, they actually show it used that way. I'm surprised that they show any of the modes being used without the safety guard on. But obviously it doesn't do anything for a cup disc like this. So just spin that on there. I'm going to just tighten it a little bit more just so it doesn't come off when it goes to stop. Then we'll just take some of this rust off this 3x4 pieces rectangular tubing here. So you can see it makes quick work of that. They spin really nicely in here. That 5 amp hour battery puts out plenty of power for these. You can see that I could get it to slow down a little bit if I really bear down on it. I know it's a little hard to tell just how hard I'm pushing on it, but you got to push pretty hard, way harder than you probably should be pushing to get it to slow down any appreciable amount. That's all the different ways I can think of to use a grinder. I really like this M18 grinder. It's got a lot of power, particularly with the bigger batteries. It lasts a long time, more than I generally want to be using a grinder anyway. Now I do have a corded grinder, which does have some benefits. If you're going to be using it all day, of course, then you don't have to worry about swapping the batteries out. It's also quite a bit lighter. These batteries are pretty heavy, so the grinder itself is a lot lighter. With the corded grinder is a lot lighter. If you're going to be using it all day, if you're frequently using grinders, you're probably going to have multiple ones anyway. It's probably nice to have both a corded and a cordless grinder. You can't beat the convenience of the cordless grinder. If you want to go quickly cut off a screw or cut off, you know, a piece of channel or something, it's a lot easier to have the cordless one than have to deal with the cords. I got the one with the slide switch. I prefer the slide switch style. They also make paddle ones. Those are variable speed, which can be pretty nice. Like I did mention though, I would have preferred to have gotten the one with the brake. It's a little bit more expensive, and you do have to worry about sometimes the discs coming off when it stops real violently, but I prefer to have the brake. That way when I go to put it down, you know, you don't have to worry about putting it down like this, thinking it's not going to be a problem, and then having this still spin and either hit what you're working on or just take off with the grinder. So I would have preferred to have gotten one with the brake. Other than that, I really like it. Very happy with it. If you feel differently, leave a comment below. Thanks for watching.